As the gates of hell tremble beneath the Vatican, Pope Alexander VI faces the devil's dark whispers. Can he unite the faithful against the encroaching evil, or will humanity fall into despair? Pope Alexander VI, a man of unwavering faith and deep conviction, had dedicated his life to protecting humanity from the horrors that lay beyond. He had spent countless nights in prayer, seeking guidance from the divine, but lately, his dreams had been plagued by visions of darkness. In these dreams, he saw the gates opening, releasing a tide of evil that threatened to engulf the world. Each morning, he awoke in a cold sweat, the weight of his responsibility pressing heavily upon his shoulders. One fateful evening, as a storm raged outside, the Pope gathered his closest advisors in the dimly lit chamber. The air was thick with tension as they discussed the growing unrest in the world, wars, famine, and disease-ravaging nations. It was as if the very forces of hell were stirring, eager to exploit humanity's suffering. The Pope's heart raced as he recalled the ancient texts that spoke of a prophecy: when the world is at its darkest, the gates shall tremble, and the devil shall seek to claim his own. As the clock struck midnight, a deafening crack echoed through the chamber. The ground shook, and the walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The Pope and his advisors exchanged fearful glances, realizing that the time had come. The gates were awakening, and the devil was no longer content to remain imprisoned. In that moment, the Pope made a fateful decision: he would descend into the depths of the chamber to confront the darkness himself. With a flickering torch in hand, Pope Alexander descended the narrow staircase that spiraled into the abyss. The air grew colder, and an unsettling silence enveloped him. As he reached the bottom, he found himself in a vast cavern, the gates looming before him like a monstrous maw. They were adorned with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of torment and despair. The Pope's heart raced as he approached, feeling the malevolent energy radiating from the gates. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant. "You cannot stop what is destined to be, Alexander. The world is ripe for chaos, and I shall be its harbinger." The Pope's blood ran cold as he recognized the voice of the devil himself, a being of unimaginable power and cunning. "You will not claim this world," the Pope declared, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "I will protect humanity, even if it costs me my life." Laughter filled the chamber, a chilling sound that reverberated off the walls. "You think you can stand against me? You are but a man, and I am eternal. The gates will open, and I will walk among your kind once more." As the devil's words hung in the air, the gates began to tremble violently, the ancient seals cracking under the pressure. The Pope knew he had to act quickly. He reached for the sacred relics he had brought with him, artifacts imbued with divine power, capable of sealing the gates once more. But as he prepared to invoke the sacred rites, a vision struck him, a glimpse of the world in chaos, of innocent lives lost, and of the darkness spreading like a plague. In that moment, the Pope realized that the key to stopping the devil lay not in brute force, but in understanding the nature of evil itself. He had to confront the darkness within himself, to face the fears and doubts that had haunted him for so long. With newfound resolve, he began to chant the ancient incantations, calling upon the light to banish the shadows. But the devil was not so easily deterred. "You think your prayers can save you? I will show you the true meaning of despair." The ground shook violently as the gates began to open, a blinding light spilling forth from the cracks. The Pope felt the pull of the darkness, a seductive whisper promising power and knowledge beyond comprehension. As the gates creaked open, the Pope's heart raced. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him, the lives of countless souls hanging in the balance. Would he succumb to the darkness, or would he find the strength to resist? The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders, and the battle between light and dark was about to begin. In that moment of uncertainty, the Pope made a choice that would change everything. He would not let fear dictate his actions. He would stand firm against the encroaching darkness, even if it meant facing the devil himself. The gates of hell were opening, and the true horror was just. The blinding light from the gates of hell illuminated the cavern, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Pope Alexander VI felt the heat radiating from the abyss, a palpable force that threatened to consume him. The air crackled with energy, and he could hear the faint whispers of tormented souls echoing from beyond the gates, calling out for release. It was a sound that chilled him to the bone, a reminder of the horrors that lay just out of reach. As the gates creaked open wider, the Pope summoned every ounce of his faith. He clutched the sacred relics tightly, feeling their power surge through him. "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit," he intoned, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. I command you, foul spirit, to return to the darkness from whence you came. But the devil's laughter echoed through the chamber, mocking and sinister. You think your prayers can bind me? I am the darkness that dwells in the hearts of men. I am the fear that drives them to madness. You are but a flickering candle in the storm, Alexander. The gates shuddered violently, and a gust of wind swept through the cavern, extinguishing the torch in the Pope's hand. He was plunged into darkness, the only sound the pounding of his heart. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but he forced himself to breathe deeply, to remember the teachings of his faith. He was not alone, he had the strength of generations of popes behind him. With a renewed sense of purpose, he reached out into the darkness, feeling for the presence of the devil. You may think you can instill fear in me, but I will not falter. I will stand against you, for the sake of all humanity. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The devil stepped forward, his form shifting and changing, a grotesque parody of humanity. You are brave, Pope, but bravery alone will not save you. You must understand the true nature of evil to defeat it. The Pope felt a chill run down his spine as the devil's words sank in. He had spent his life preaching against sin, but had he ever truly understood the depths of darkness? The devil continued, his voice smooth and persuasive. Look around you, Alexander. The world is filled with suffering, betrayal, and despair. I merely offer them the freedom to embrace their true selves. You cannot fight what is inherent in humanity. The Pope shook his head, refusing to be swayed. You twist the truth to suit your own ends. Evil is a choice, not a destiny. I will not allow you to corrupt the hearts of men. With a flick of his wrist, the devil conjured visions of chaos, cities burning, families torn apart, and innocent lives lost. The Pope felt the weight of despair pressing down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. This is the world you protect, Alexander. A world that craves darkness. You cannot save them, they do not wish to be saved. But in that moment of despair, the Pope remembered the teachings of Christ, the power of love, compassion, and redemption. He raised his voice, calling upon the light within him. I will not let your lies take root in my heart. I choose to believe in the goodness of humanity, in the power of love to overcome hate. The cavern trembled as the gates continued to open, the light spilling forth like a flood. The devil's form flickered, revealing glimpses of the tormented souls trapped within the abyss. You are a fool, Pope. You cannot save them all. They will come to me willingly, and you will be powerless to stop it. With a surge of determination, the Pope stepped forward, invoking the sacred relics once more. In the name of the Holy Trinity, I command you to be gone. I will not allow you to claim this world. The air crackled with energy as the relics glowed with divine light. The devil recoiled, his form shifting and warping as the power of the relics pushed against him. You think you can banish me? I am eternal. I will return, and when I do, I will take what is rightfully mine. As the gates of hell began to close, the Pope felt a surge of hope. He had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. But as the last remnants of the devil's laughter echoed in the chamber, he knew that this was only the beginning. The battle was far from over, and the true test of his faith lay ahead. With the gates sealed, the Pope ascended the staircase, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what lay beyond. He had glimpsed the darkness, and it had left its mark on him. The world outside was still in turmoil, and he knew that the devil would not rest until he had claimed his prize. As Pope Alexander VI emerged from the depths of the Vatican, the weight of his encounter with the devil pressed heavily on his shoulders. The flickering candlelight of the chapel felt almost mocking in contrast to the darkness he had just faced. He knew that the battle was not merely against a singular entity but against the very nature of humanity itself. The Pope gathered his advisors, their faces pale and drawn, reflecting the fear that had gripped the Vatican. We have sealed the gates for now, he began, his voice steady but laced with urgency. But the devil will not rest. He will seek to exploit the weaknesses of mankind, to turn them against one another. We must prepare for the storm that is coming. As he spoke, the Pope's mind raced with the implications of his encounter. The visions of chaos and despair haunted him, and he realized that the devil's influence was already seeping into the world. Reports of strange occurrences began to flood in, people turning against each other, inexplicable violence erupting in cities, and a growing sense of hopelessness that seemed to grip the hearts of men. Determined to confront this darkness, the Pope called for a gathering of the Church's most trusted leaders. They convened in the grand hall, the air thick with tension as they discussed the growing unrest. "We must unite our efforts," the Pope urged. "We cannot allow fear to dictate our actions. We must spread hope and light in the face of this encroaching darkness." But as the discussions continued, a shadow fell over the gathering. A figure emerged from the back of the hall, cloaked in darkness, his presence sending a chill through the room. It was Cardinal Lucius, a man known for his unorthodox beliefs and a growing following among the faithful. "You speak of hope, Alexander, but what if the darkness is a part of us? What if we must embrace it to truly understand our nature?" The Pope's heart sank as he listened to Lucius's words. "You cannot be serious. To embrace darkness is to invite destruction. We must resist it, not succumb to it." Lucius stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with a fervor that sent shivers down the Pope's spine. "You are blinded by your faith, Alexander. The devil is not merely an enemy, he is a reflection of our own desires, our own fears. To deny him is to deny a part of ourselves." The room erupted in murmurs of dissent, and the Pope felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Could it be that Lucius was right? Was the darkness within humanity something that could not be vanquished? He shook his head, refusing to entertain such thoughts. "We must stand united against this evil. We cannot allow fear to divide us." But Lucius's influence was growing, and whispers of dissent began to spread among the clergy. The Pope knew he had to act quickly to quell the rising tide of doubt. He called for a pilgrimage, a journey to the holy sites of the Vatican, where the faithful could come together in prayer and solidarity. "We will show the world that light can triumph over darkness," he declared, his voice resolute. As the day of the pilgrimage approached, the Pope felt a sense of foreboding. The devil's presence lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the battle that lay ahead. He spent sleepless nights in prayer, seeking guidance and strength. But as he knelt before the altar, he could not shake the feeling that the darkness was closing in around him. On the day of the pilgrimage, thousands gathered in St. Peter's Square, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of candles. The Pope stood before them, his heart swelling with hope as he addressed the crowd. "We are here to stand against the darkness, to unite in our faith and our love for one another. Together, we can overcome any evil that seeks to divide us." But as he spoke, a sudden chill swept through the crowd. The sky darkened, and a storm began to brew overhead. Lightning flashed, illuminating the faces of the faithful, and a low rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. The atmosphere shifted, and the Pope felt a sense of dread wash over him. In that moment, a figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness. It was the devil, his form shifting and swirling like smoke. "You think your faith can protect you, Alexander? Look around you. The darkness is already here, and it will consume you all." The crowd gasped, fear rippling through them as the devil's presence loomed large. The Pope's heart raced, but he refused to show weakness. "You will not instill fear in us. We stand united in our faith, and we will not be swayed by your lies." The devil laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the square. "You are a fool, Pope. Your faith is a fragile thing, easily shattered by the weight of reality. Look at them, Alexander. They are already trembling. The darkness is not just outside, it is within them, waiting for the right moment to strike." As the devil's words hung in the air, the crowd began to murmur, uncertainty creeping into their hearts. The Pope felt the tension rise, the fear palpable as he looked into the eyes of the faithful. He knew he had to act quickly to quell the rising panic. "Do not listen to him," he shouted, his voice ringing out with authority. "We are stronger together. Our faith is our shield against the darkness." But the storm above intensified, and the winds howled like a chorus of lost souls. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the candles flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows across the square. The Pope could feel the weight of despair pressing down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. He had faced the devil before, but this time felt different, more personal, more insidious. Suddenly, the sky split open with a blinding flash of lightning, illuminating the figure of the devil as he stepped forward, his eyes burning with malevolence. "You cannot protect them, Alexander. They are already mine. I have whispered in their ears, sowing seeds of doubt and fear. They will turn on you, and when they do, you will be left alone to face the darkness." The crowd gasped, and the Pope's heart sank as he saw the flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. He had to remind them of their strength, of the light that resided within each of them. "Remember the love that brought us here today. Remember the hope that binds us together. We are not alone in this fight. But the devil's laughter echoed through the square, a sound that sent chills down the Pope's spine. Hope. Love. Those are mere illusions, Alexander. When faced with true despair, they will crumble like dust. I will show you the truth of your faith. With a wave of his hand, the devil conjured visions of horror, images of war, suffering, and betrayal flashed before the crowd. The faithful gasped as they witnessed the worst of humanity laid bare before them. Families torn apart, friends turned against each other, and the innocent suffering at the hands of the wicked. The Pope felt their resolve wavering, the darkness creeping into their hearts. No, he cried, raising his hands in defiance. These are not the only truths. We have the power to choose love over hate, compassion over cruelty. We can rise above the darkness. But the devil was relentless. You are fighting a losing battle, Pope. The world is filled with pain, and it will only grow worse. Embrace the darkness, and you will find true power. As the storm raged on, the Pope felt the weight of despair pressing down on him. He could see the fear in the eyes of the faithful, and he knew that the devil's words were taking root. He had to confront the darkness within himself, to face the doubts that had begun to creep in. In that moment of vulnerability, the Pope closed his eyes and reached deep within, seeking the light that had guided him through his darkest hours. He remembered the teachings of Christ, the power of forgiveness, and the strength of community. With a deep breath, he opened his eyes and spoke with renewed conviction. You may show us the darkness, but we will not be defined by it. We are the light that shines in the shadows, and we will not be extinguished. Together, we will rise against you. The crowd began to respond, their voices rising in unison, chanting prayers and hymns that echoed through the square. The power of their faith surged like a tidal wave, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The Pope felt the energy of the crowd, their hope igniting a fire within him. But the devil was not finished. You think your prayers can save you? I will show you the true nature of despair. With a flick of his wrist, he unleashed a torrent of darkness that swept through the square, engulfing the faithful in a suffocating shroud. The Pope felt the weight of the darkness pressing down on him, threatening to snuff out the light. He struggled to maintain his focus, to keep the faith alive in the hearts of those around him. Do not give in, he shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. Remember the love that brought us here. Remember the strength we find in one another. As the darkness swirled around him, the Pope reached for the sacred relics he had brought with him, feeling their power surge through him. He began to chant the ancient incantations, calling upon the divine to banish the shadows. The air crackled with energy as the light began to push back against the darkness. But the devil's laughter echoed in his ears, a chilling reminder of the battle that lay ahead. You may fight with all your might, Pope, but the darkness is patient. It will wait for you to falter, for you to doubt. And when you do, I will be there to claim what is mine. As the Pope chanted, the light around him began to grow, illuminating the faces of the faithful who stood resolute against the encroaching shadows. He could see their determination, their belief in the power of love and unity. The darkness writhed and twisted, but it was met with the unwavering strength of their collective faith. Together, we are stronger than you, devil, the Pope shouted, his voice echoing through the storm. We will not be swayed by your lies or your temptations. We will stand firm in our belief that love conquers all. With each word, the light intensified, pushing back against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. The Pope felt the energy of the crowd surge, their voices rising in a powerful chorus of prayer and hope. The darkness began to recede, the shadows retreating as the light grew brighter. But the devil was relentless. You think you can banish me? I am the darkness that dwells in every heart, the fear that lurks in every soul. You cannot escape me. In that moment, the Pope realized that the battle was not just against an external force but against the darkness within humanity itself. He had to confront the fears and doubts that resided in his own heart. With a deep breath, he closed his eyes and focused on the light within him, the love that had guided him through his darkest moments. I embrace the light, he declared, his voice steady and resolute. I embrace the love that binds us all together. I will not let fear dictate my actions, nor will I allow it to consume those I love. As he opened his eyes, the light exploded around him, a brilliant radiance that pierced through the darkness. The devil's form flickered, his laughter turning to rage as the light enveloped him. No. This cannot be. You will pay for this defiance. With a final surge of power, the Pope raised the sacred relics high, invoking the divine protection that had been bestowed upon him. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I command you to leave this place. You have no power here. The darkness writhed and twisted, but the light was unyielding. The Pope felt the energy of the crowd behind him, their faith fueling the divine power that surged through him. The shadows began to dissipate, the devil's form shrinking as the light consumed him. With a final, anguished scream, the devil was banished, the darkness retreating into the depths from whence it came. The storm above began to clear, the clouds parting to reveal a brilliant blue sky. The faithful stood in awe, their faces illuminated by the light that now filled the square. Pope Alexander VI fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the weight of what had just transpired. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but he knew that the battle was far from over. The devil would return, and the struggle against the darkness within humanity would continue. As the crowd gathered around him, their faces filled with hope and gratitude, the Pope felt a renewed sense of purpose. We have faced the darkness together, he said, his voice steady. But we must remain vigilant. The devil will always seek to exploit our fears and doubts. We must continue to spread love and light in the world, for that is our greatest weapon against the darkness. The faithful erupted in cheers, their voices rising in a powerful chorus of unity. The Pope knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he also knew that together, they could overcome any obstacle. The light of their faith would guide them, and the love they shared would be their shield against the darkness. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over St. Peter's Square, the Pope looked out at the faces of the faithful, their eyes shining with hope. He had faced the devil and emerged victorious, but he understood that the true battle lay within each of them. They would need to confront their own darkness, to choose love over fear, and to stand united against the forces that sought to divide them. In that moment, Pope Alexander VI made a silent vow to continue the fight, to protect the light that resided within every soul. The gates of hell may have been sealed for now, but the struggle against darkness would never truly end. And as long as there was love in the world, there would always be hope. The story of their victory would be told for generations to come, a testament to the power of faith and the strength of unity. And as the Pope stood among his people, he knew that together, they would face whatever darkness lay ahead, armed with the light of their love and the unwavering belief that they could overcome anything.